Here we go. Hey, all. Thank you again for this episode of the Digital Data Cafe. I'm super pumped and super excited to have Miss Becca Chernek here to join us. She's got a wealth of F&I experience and a lot of automotive background. Without further ado, Becca, welcome to the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you again for having me. So thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
No, super excited. And I got to tell you, this topic that we're going to be covering today, digital retailing and how it incorporates and implements into the F&I process and really what it means for the dealer is super exciting, but it's needed, right? Dealers need to hear about this. So, but before we do, I think they need to hear about you. So why don't you tell us your story and how you got here?
Well, it's a big story. It's a great story. And I started selling cars when women weren't supposed to be selling cars. And in fact, my father was a dealer and he really did not even want me to go into the car business. He didn't feel that women belonged in the industry.
Interesting.
So a lot of people think that I was the chip off the old block, but frankly, I like to prove people wrong, especially my father. Just kidding. But anyway, out of all the siblings in my family, 3 brothers, 2 sisters, here I am. I knocked it out and I actually left college and I went to knock on Al Packer, Lincoln and Mercury's door in Baltimore, Maryland. You may know where that may be.
I'm very familiar with Al Packer. Yes.
Yeah. And so they hired me as their first female to sell cars. So there it was. And then we realized that I certainly had the DNA in my blood. And then later I went to a truck dealership, Ford dealership in Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
Okay.
And Ron Bortnick hires me. And again, first female there and to sell. And then I get promoted into F&I. And I'm going to tell you right now, I thought I died and went to heaven. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I thought for sure I was going to be the very, very best. I mean, I was going to kill it. I was going to own this deal. And frankly, I did. But they sent me to Pat Ryan and Associates in Chicago. So I did that whole deal. And everybody that can relate to Pat Ryan and what that whole thing was, it wasn't easy. And yeah, so that was part of it. And then later became a director of finance for some large automotive dealerships in the Washington, D.C. area. And I know all the people in that area, a lot of fun, good people. Then I'm really dating myself here, guys. 1995, I get hired by JM&A.
All right. Okay. Very familiar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Southeast Toyota, right? And so here we go again. Newbie all over, specialist. They put you in dealerships all over the USA. And here you have your suitcase and your banking keys. You're doing whatever that you have to do to be profitable, right? To maximize profits for the store, to train up whatever that they need at that particular time, and or kicking off stores. And our goal was to do whatever that it took to maximize those profits. So it could be different touch points to be able to move that performance. So that's from obviously that stakeholder GM, all the way through the sales associates, the desking, as well as your F&I department to move that performance. So really acquired a tremendous amount of experience in and out of all these dealerships throughout the USA. And then eventually, this was the kicker. 1997.
Yes.
I get promoted to the AutoNation division.
All right.
And this is where my whole world changed. So you have to appreciate the fact that, man, I owned it. I mean, I'm being hired by JM&A, and not everybody's hired by JM&A. You have to have some talent.
That's right.
You've got to know what you're doing, man, because they weren't going to hire just anybody.
That's right.
So, I mean, I was proven. So now all of a sudden, I'm doing the complete opposite of anything that I was ever trained to do.
Okay.
I'm meeting customers at a kiosk in the middle of a showroom. And we are presenting this menu. We are presenting a way to be completely upfront. Customers understood the terms of the sale. They understood what they were paying for a car, what they got for a trade-in, which was unheard of.
Yes.
They knew the payment. They also knew the interest rate. And then from there, we presented our products. And even then they knew their payment. And it was like, how is this ever going to work?
That's right. It's the inception of consumer transparency and menu selling, right?
It's exactly right. And I'll tell you, talk about intimidating.
Right.
I'll never forget when I had to go out there with another F&I person in tow, and here we are, and I'm presenting this menu, and I'm thinking, how's this going to work?
Right.
And even the guys at JM&A, they were like, Becky, why in the world are you in that division? Have you lost your mind? There's no way you can be up front and still be profitable.
That's right.
And I'm like, you know what? I paid my dues. I'm taking this on. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it work. And it did. And then we just turned heads along the way, and we took the nation by storm. It was phenomenal. Then, of course, they said, okay, well, you can be okay there in the mega stores. That's going to work. That's okay. That makes sense.
Right.
But you're not going to take that menu into the new car stores.
Right.
That's not going to work. You're going to fail. And one thing about me is when someone tells me I can't do something,
that's right.
I prove them wrong.
That's right.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Well, you know, the common thread, and I have to say this because it just shines and it screams at me, right? It's, you know what, Becca, you are the first in many, right? You're the fighter. You know, I could see it. It exudes through you. You're the first woman, you know, you're going to go out there and you're going to do it. You're going to get in that dealership. You're going to kick butt. You're the first in getting into those showrooms and being in an all man's world, if you will, and making it happen and cutting your chops and making it work. And now look, you know, first in menu selling, you know, first in transparency, consumer transparency, and you did it. I mean, this is exciting.
Well, I did, you know, along with some team members, you know, but
Sure.
it was just, everyone doesn't understand, because at the time, you've got to understand how many people told me, Becky, this isn't going to work. Are you out of your mind? What are you even thinking? There is no way you can present this menu,
right,
and customers are going to buy.
Right.
When the opposite happened, the more that you were upfront with that customer, the more you were engaging with the customer earlier on in that process.
Yes.
The more that you built that credibility.
Yep.
And they bought into it.
Yeah,
it simply worked.
You are preaching my language, right? Which is building consumer loyalty. I mean, this is where we have moved as an industry. You know, it's all about consumer transparency, building the one-to-one relationship with that consumer. That's really what's going to build the brand, you know, moving forward. And so, you know, you were at JMA, you've created this menu selling, you're proving yourself in the franchise world. So what was the next part of your story?
Well, that's where it gets even better. So I decided in 2001, I actually left JM&A, and I decided that, you know what, I got this, and I'm going to take this secret sauce, and I'm going to be that torch, if you will.
Right.
And I founded my consulting company on those same best practices and strategies,
sure,
which meant that I went to different dealerships all over the USA as a consultant on these practices. And it was dealers that really were talking more about it, and they were hearing more about it in their NADA 20 groups.
Right.
And they started to understand, maybe I need to pay attention to this deal. Maybe I need to find out what's that menu selling all about, and
sure,
how it's going to help me to be more profitable and keeping profits on the books, reduce those chargebacks.
Yes.
Have a better customer experience, and reduce the time that it takes, you know, to buy a car.
Absolutely.
So they're like, sign me up. Let's take a look at this. So I'm in dealerships. I'm doing workshops for NADA, NCM, all over the USA, in Canada even as well.
Incredible.
And it just blew up from there. It just was a great idea. Yeah, and of course we struggled with that. And then I've had workshops all over the USA as well. Had F&I people, hundreds of, I mean, just to tell you how many I would have in these workshops all over the country, talking about the benefit behind and how to put this in place. Absolutely. So it's like, you have a piece of paper,
right?
You have the idea behind it.
Yes, ma'am.
And think through this. I mean, here it is. But how do you really make it work? Right. How do you integrate it into your everyday workflow? you've got to remember F&I people, like, what's in it for me?
Right.
And how is that going to affect my what?
Right.
My
Absolutely.
pay plan.
That's right. Your pay plan. Well, and that might be a really good opportunity for you to walk us through the evolution of, that transparency, right? That consumer journey, that transparency, early 2000s, right? We're doing menu selling, and now look at where we're at, right? We're in this DR landscape, so
right.
Walk us through how that transition's happened, and maybe kind of from there, from where we're at now, what you're talking about, all the way to where digital retailing has become a real thing. Because I remember, listen, full transparency, I remember early 2000s. Oh my goodness, there's going to be websites, and oh my goodness, there's going to be customers that'll come online. They're going to order a car, and my franchise is going to shut down, and there's going to be no auto trader. There's going to be no. So look, never happens now. I feel like we had the same kind of sense of concern here when digital retailing started, but interesting segue. So walk us through kind of the origin of digital retailing.
So you're right. So here's the thing. It's all about engaging the customer way. That's what people have to see. How does the customer want to engage? So my first was, again, remember, meeting customers out at a kiosk in the middle of a showroom.
Right.
It was not dragging customers into an F&I box again and doing the traditional box close.
That's right.
It was different. We're meeting them on their terms. So it isn't any different meeting a customer on their terms at their home or in their office, right, and utilizing the tools that are available to us to help us engage better, to be more intuitive with that client. It's no different really back, even when I was doing subprime.
Right.
Every customer I that came into that store, I reached out to before they ever got into the dealership. And the reason why is to do our fact finding.
Interesting.
To assure the information that I gathered was correct to begin with. What's the sense of bringing someone in without the proper information that I need to go ahead and put a deal together? Right. No different here. We're giving the customer the ability, give control to take control. Let them have the flexibility to shop the vehicle online. Why not?
Why not?
Why not? Of course they should. Right. And then from there, hey, what's my budget? What am I looking to do?
Yeah.
And why not? And to toggle through all the terms and financing options that would be available to them. And while we're at it, why not go ahead and have the flexibility to shop for our products?
Yeah, warranty gap. Let's let them see and let them pick their own solutions that make sense for them. But, I think one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the big challenges that I saw in the early onset, especially when some of the manufacturers were kind of picking and choosing the tools that each brand had to use. But a lot of retailers kind of got stuck in that mindset of DR as just a lead generator. And they're using it as a lead tool instead of really as a vehicle completion tool. So what are your thoughts on that? And, how is that really a stumbling block in the main big picture of it?
Yeah. Okay. So it was more or less it's treated more or less, still is today, as a lead generator. That's really kind of where it's at. And unfortunately, the customer can toggle through some of these options that may be available to them. But when they get into the dealership, the process starts all over again, as if they've never been there.
Yes.
And the idea behind this is that we are giving customers the ability to shop, to determine financing options earlier on, so that way we're shortening up the time it takes to buy a car.
Right.
We are making this process easier.
Right.
But what's happening is we have that, you're right, connect to disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my way or the highway still. I still am struggling with the fact of giving the customer the flexibility of determining these options in advance.
Yep.
If I feel I'm not in control, I have a problem. I have a concern with that. And that's their thinking. That's the challenge.
Yep.
So they won't allow the customer the flexibility to get through that digital journey.
No, my apologies, didn't mean to interrupt, but I will say this, so back in the day, I remember, when I was, cutting my teeth in the Auto Trader days, and you would know that, the experience, the customer experience, and I'll tie this into kind of how we need to meet the customer where they're at is, you would go and you would meet with your retailer, you'd sit down and you'd say, hey, look, let's talk about the experience, right? And at that time, we didn't have the full visibility, right? We couldn't see in the tools where they toggled to 5,000 down or 2,500 down, or they would adjust the term. We didn't have those tools, but we knew that the customer was looking at the photos. We knew that they were looking at comments. We knew that they were, hey, bring over your spouse over here and take a look at the photos. And then they would submit a lead. And then what happened was that customer would manifest themselves on the dealer lot. And I would tell the retailers, I would say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. GM, that customer that parks their car, goes past that lot, past that lane, and goes all the way to that corner and just starts standing by that one little yellow Volkswagen Beetle or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And I used to call it the beeline effect, right? I would say that that's the customer that's going to do the beeline straight to the car because they've already sold themselves, right? They're 90% on the bottom of the funnel. So now let's talk about that from a DR perspective. So with digital retailing, we know that they're getting themselves down that funnel. They're potentially all the way to a soft credit pool, or they're all the way to the point where they've picked Gap or warranty. And then all of a sudden I walk into that dealership and then it's, hi, my name is Steve. How can I help you today? Right. And now we're restarting them over. So the whole concept of that connect to disconnect, I got to tell you, I think you're right on. And so how do we build executable dealership workflows to do this? And what are your recommendations to really meet the customer where the customer's at?
Well, this is where I had a conversation with Brian Kramer, who is the GM of Germain Toyota.
Yes.
And one of the things that he did, and this happened during the COVID, the team, when they all hit, they realized we've got to do something different. We can't keep doing what we've always been doing. We want to get through this, and we are going to be very successful doing this.
Got to create a plan.
Absolutely. One of the things that I absolutely liked about where Brian was going with that, he got all the team members together to mastermind through what does this look like and how can we best make sure that everyone is involved in implementing an in-dealership or from engagement online to in-dealership workflow. And every individual, every manager, BDC, you name it, everyone is had feedback and was a part of that decision making.
Now, quick question for
that.
Now,
ideal.
That's amazing, and I love that. So walk us through that. Do you think that it makes sense then to also incorporate the entire team from all the way start of maybe even the decision-making process to even buy the technology? Should they be in the decision-making process of, is this the right tool for our dealership? How far back should they be involved?
Can I tell you how often dealers go to, we all know, and, our dealers are going to NADA 20 groups or they're going to NADA and they pick up on this shiny new technology. And it's like, man, this is it. This is awesome.
Right.
So cool. But they may not think through the integration and what they currently have.
Yep.
And so what ends up happening is that, again, it's a disconnect with the team. And they have super frustrations because now all they're doing is trying to satisfy this dealer, but they do a workaround. So meanwhile, technology sits back and collects cyber dust. Nothing really happens there. So I would definitely recommend that the dealer, along with their managers, absolutely have to look at each part of what that technology can do and how it integrates.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, your key stakeholders in every single profitable, center in that dealership should be involved. Any stakeholder that's going to be a part of that consumer journey should be involved in the integration. Because to your point, all too often that shiny new object syndrome, right? The shiny new object syndrome gets you excited. You buy it because it looks great, but you're not thinking about how is this going to incorporate with my BDC? How is this going to really incorporate with what's happening in the box, right? So you really have to, make sure that the key stakeholders are part of that decision-making process, how it integrates. And then I think what you said about Brian, right? making sure that you have a plan in place. What type of processes, from plans that you would recommend that make sense just for somebody like a dealership that has it now? Or, well, you know what, better yet, walk us through some solutions that you think make sense for dealers, A, that don't have a good DR tool right now. Where should they start? And then B, maybe retailers that have a tool right now, how can they go back and kind of reset that workflow process?
Wow. Well, the thing that they want to be able to do is every digital retailing tool they have a different culture, if you will, what they think the process should be. So, for example, CarNow could be one different than Roadster. Roadster is different than AutoFi. Any of these digital retailers offer a different way to go. The dealer needs to make a decision. What do I need? What, as far as my culture is concerned, is the technology matched to what we are doing and how we process the deal? Period. That's the first thing that you need to look at, because one is different from another. It's just like sending someone to training and then having them go back to the dealership and nobody supports the training. What are you doing? Right. So you really have to really determine, first of all, what do you believe in? What is your culture? What is your mindset when it comes to this technology? What do you produce versus what the other technology or digital driver offers? And I think that that's a really important piece of it all. Really important.
I love that. I love that. Cause and just to kind of put some context behind that, right? Looking at your culture in your store and tying it to that DR tool is so important, because to your point, all of the digital retailing tools have different drivers, right? Some really, propel the chat experience, right? And making sure that you're working your consumer through that chat experience. And guess what? If you don't have a BDC team or stakeholders that'll take that on, that may not be the best tool for you. So you're exactly right. I think that's really great feedback. And so,
or like you have a dealer who's like, all right, I'm okay with a soft pull. Right. But you get into a hard inquiry, I've got a problem with that. That's right. I don't want to finalize this transaction. Right. I just want to get to the point enough to know this is the car that they want. These are some of the options that would be available and the likelihood of an approval. Other than that, I'm ready to get involved, get this customer into the dealership. That's my conversation. Or you have a dealer mindset who says, you know what, complete the whole thing. I don't care. Right. You know, we'll get to the physical offsite delivery process. We'll figure all that out. It's just like you said, it depends on their culture, what they feel that process needs to be. But if in the event it doesn't integrate, you're going to have, everyone's going to work around it. They're going to do everything they can to work around it. It's not going to get integrated. It's Steve Jobs back in the day, he actually made a really good, on stage, when I think it was back in the day when he was unveiling the iPhone. I think one of the things he said is that, a lot of the technology companies, one of the things that they always do, and they tend to make the biggest mistakes. And that mistake is that they always think about how cool my tech is, how awesome the tech is, and how great the tech is. And so a bunch of engineers go back and they start developing all this tech. That's right. And no one ever stopped to say, customer first. How does this actually work for the customer? And then work their way back to develop the tech. Same thing here for the dealership experience. Stop and think about your customer first, then go back, inspect the tech, right? Inspect the tech and how it integrates. And I think Becca, you're right on point there. Well, I've seen so many roadblocks and frustrations because of it. Right. And then they found out, well, I thought this was going to do this or that or the other. So we have to do better fact finding and just making sure that it all seems it's that seamless process and it supports what we're doing in the dealership.
Well, going back to what you said, I think it's probably the most important piece of it all, right? And the takeaway, regardless of what tech you have or what processes you have, I think one of the biggest choke points, and I think the biggest fallout factors that we're talking about here, right, is at the end of the day, right, if you boil it all down, we know that digital retailing is allowing consumers to control their journey further, right? And then the problem is, at some point, whether either the consumer is going to do one of two things, right? They're going to either complete their journey, select their own after sales, pick their own warranties, do their own solution and complete the transaction, or they're going to get so far and then stop that transaction. And then at some point, they're going to reveal themselves to you either in store or by lead. And then I think your main thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is meeting that customer. And, I've heard you in the past talk about the Amazon experience and the Apple experience. Walk us through that.
Well, the Amazon experience, remember, everything, keep it simple, make it easy to buy a car.
Right.
And create that ultimate buying experience, seamless. Don't make customers sit forever long in the day waiting to buy a car and to get in and out of this F&I department. So we have to make it more user-friendly. Amazon obviously is very user-friendly. And everyone, and I can't imagine, I'm sure there's a lot who have used Amazon. How easy is it to shop, to buy? 1, 2, 3, done.
Right. 1, 2, 3. Yep.
And they get to my home and that's it. That's all I want. In the Apple analogy, the Apple is so important because the Apple offers the customer again, they're engaging online, but when you walk into their physical store, and you're in the store, more brick and mortar, that experience is the same.
Right.
It's identical. It is identical. It still is a wow moment of fun, of seamless, of cool, and customers just love the experience. And
right.
I don't know, this is what I'm talking about. Taking a customer from that wow online experience, having fun, digging through their options. I don't care whether or not they do a hard inquiry and obtain financing. Who cares?
Right.
Because customer comes in for physical delivery, we got most of the stuff out of the way. It's not as if I can't go ahead and do an upsell and finalize the transaction. So what is everybody so concerned about? It just makes it so much easier. And when you make it easier, you're going to be a lot more profitable.
Love it. Love it. And so, I like the concept of being able to build a seamless, I call it the online to offline transition, right? Because if you think about it, and as a consumer of Apple myself, I like how you're integrating that concept into the digital dealership world. Because think about it, right? Whether your phone breaks and you have to go into Apple and fix your screen, or whether you're putting an order in and you stop short of that order, you're getting a notification right away. As soon as you get a notification, they're letting you know which store you're going to go to. As soon as you get there, you're meeting your Apple representative. They're pulling your info up. They know exactly what you're looking for. And I didn't restart. I didn't have to retell my story. And to your point, that's the Apple experience, right?
That's it. And so I think that, the dealer world is still stuck. Not everyone.
Right.
But the reality of it is they're still stuck in we'll wait to talk about these terms.
Right.
So the customer makes their way into the F&I office. That's how we do it then.
Right.
And this is something that over a period of time, they need to switch.
Right.
Their thinking and realizing the time that you need to engage with that customer isn't when that customer walks into your F&I office. You're going to lose more. You're going to lose control. What's going to end up happening if we're not engaging sooner the customer way, customers have too many options available to them online. Would you not agree?
I would agree 100%.
So if you want to keep doing what you've been doing, you got customers walking in with a check made out for the exact amount.
That's right. That's right. Penny
This
perfect.
is what we're trying to do to prevent that from happening. And the technology, if you don't mind me saying this.
Oh, please.
I wrote a blog on LinkedIn, and it was about the human factor. Technology does not replace the human factor.
That's right.
What's happening here, it enhances what we're doing. We're utilizing these tools to really benefit from the ultimate customer experience. And, let's face it, if a customer has a good time buying a car, they're going to be back. And and I'll tell you, there's nothing better than a repeat customer.
That's right.
Right.
That's
it's
right.
just nothing better. I mean, but if you have a customer that you've dragged through the mud and taken forever long in a day, doing things the old school way, they're not coming back.
Yeah. And in a world where right now brand loyalty is becoming almost non-existent, right? In a world where, CSI becomes a more important, basically part of the whole process. You've got to learn how to own that share of the consumer, that mind, peace of mind that the consumer is going to have when they're working with you, so they can share that and be a voice for your dealership. Because to your point, right, we're in this world where that consumer experience is critical. I love the concept of enhancing the human experience and making it the ultimate customer experience. That's what we have to. We have to get there. How do we get there, Becca? How do we get there?
Well, again, it's just like it was when I was putting menus at the dealerships years back, and it was like everybody was like tugging, right? They were like, "Hey, it's taking a while to get this buy-in," and believe me when I tell you, you just can't take no for an answer. You can't. It's just showing them the way.
Yes.
It really is just showing them the way. It's getting away from that fear factor. And once we get and show and tell that, hey, by the way, this works. And the more that we do, the better that we get. And the more they hear the success stories, the more they start thinking, well, maybe there's something here.
Yeah. And what's interesting, and not to cut you short there, but I'll tell you, in my previous roles, working with Infinity and when DR rolled out, part of it is showing the dealers the way, but then also once they see that consumers, believe it or not, when given the power of choice, they will choose more, and your bottom line in the box can go up. So you got to show them the way, you got to see the value, and then you'll see the customer will build themselves the options they want.
Well, what's interesting, so Brian Kramer, as I mentioned, but we had a conversation on one of my talk shows, and live talk with Becca Chernek, and it was really a great conversation.
Oh, I saw it. It was wonderful. It was fantastic.
He's something else.
Yes.
He's out of the box thinker.
Top
I
1%.
love him.
Yes.
Just like he gets it.
Yep.
And so his F&I manager was giving him like a hard time about doing this F&I online.
Okay.
And it is. I mean, these guys are fighting it tooth and nail. Just make no mistake about it.
Right.
They don't want to do it. They don't want to go ahead, meet a customer online. They are very uncomfortable with that whole process, and they're just uncomfortable because they feel like they have lost control.
Well, it's how they built their value all this time, right? It's how they built their value.
It's how I felt when I first went out and presented my menu in the middle of the showroom. I'm like, are you people kidding me? How is this all going to work? And that's how they feel. That's exactly how they feel. And that's exactly how they felt when you're talking about, do you want me to present a base payment on this menu? Are you people out of your mind? We don't do that.
Right.
There's no difference here. But where I'm going with the story, that he pushed her. He gave her no alternative. She had no other option. You're going to do this.
Okay.
And that's it. There's no other ship in the harbor. This is it. This is one ship. This is where we're going.
Yep.
Loved his analogy on that.
Love that.
And that's a tough pill to swallow. I get it.
Yes.
It is. But let me tell you right now, she is the #1 F&I person, blowing it away, doing F&I online to cash customers, and she is hitting it. So guess who's coming on my live talk with Becca Chernek?
The F&I manager.
She's going to talk about it, and she's going to talk about her struggles, her challenges with it, and how she blew it out of the water.
Well, that is going to be, that's going to be exciting. That's going to be an exciting episode. And actually, you know what? I think that probably puts us in a really good position here, hey, if I'm a dealer, or if I want to build process, or I want to get more of that information from Becca, how do we get a hold of you? What's the next steps? I mean, how can we get more of this valuable insight?
Well, thank you very much. I'm all over LinkedIn. So Becca Chernek, you can look me up both ways. I'm online, I'm on Google, you can search me. But also feel free to email me, say Becky at Chernek Consulting. Now, CHERNEK consulting.com. That way, I mean, there's so many different ways you can find me. On Facebook, I do those lives talk with Becca Chernek, Facebook and LinkedIn, lives every Wednesday. And then my podcast, Make Your F&I Profits Stick. Yep. And so amazing conversation I had just with Dave Anderson. And what was really cool about that, maybe one day we'll even dig a little bit deeper into this conversation, because I think sometimes dealers, that are doing really well, they're killing it, right? And especially now they're maximizing all the profits on every single deal. I mean, if you're not, what's up with that? Then you really need to call me.
Yes.
I mean, if there's a struggle, something's not right, right?
Right.
But we have a tendency when we're really successful that we keep our blindfolders on. And it's like, and it really ends up after a while, because as Dave Anderson points out, we have really good seasons, but we also have bad seasons.
Right.
And right now we're in a great season, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not preparing for your future. Where are you 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 2 years from now?
That's right.
And that's what we really want to make sure that, hey, by the way, you might be doing great now, but do we have a plan in place to really sustain that profit?
So glad that you said that. This is a really important note to end on, because I think a lot of dealers are in that mindset of, I'm killing it right now. I'm great. I don't need to improve on anything. Highest grosses ever. But, Becca, you and I both know, and I think everyone out there, should know, it's a matter of time when that market edges against you. And it's those that are proactive that will succeed versus the reactive. And if you want to be proactive, I'm telling you, they got to come see you. They got to talk to you. They're going to kill it. Well, thank you so much. And looking forward to being on future shows with you.
Absolutely. You're coming on my show. That's for darn sure. And podcast.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.